Okay. Let's rock and roll.
Well, welcome along, everyone. I'd like to preface this with a little a reassurance to our listeners and to myself as to whether or not you have lost your mind.
Yes, that's
It seems to be the prevailing question.
yes, yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah.
Help me along.
The reason we're doing this is one, because I have endlessly insatiable curiosity, and religion for 15 years has been right at the core of that for some reason. I've always thought it was beautiful. I've always loved the ceremony, the pageantry, the history. But there's also, I think at the minute, I am having to endure a lot of sort of emotional strain and difficulty. And I wonder, and today it just sort of occurred to me, I was like, I wonder if some part of me is hoping that something from the Bible jumps out at me and says, here we go.
Gives you the swift kick in the knackers.
Yeah, or just says that you should believe now because of this. I've always had a relationship with God in that every time I got arrested or was hungover, I'd say, listen, God, get me out of this. And this is true. Get me out of this and I'll start preaching the good word. You know what I mean? You got me. And I never made good on those promises.
What's the famous line, everyone's an atheist until they're in a foxhole?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was exactly the situation. So what I'm doing is essentially I'm exploring the unusual feelings I have towards this faith, this feeling that I have. This is an exploration of that. Before we start, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors, Graham's Windows and Doors at grahamswindowsanddoors.co.uk. Graham's Windows and Doors are Yeovil's finest provider of windows, doors and conservatories. Thank you, James. Thank you, Sherelle. We really appreciate your support. That's grahamswindowsanddoors.co.uk. And thank you to our other sponsors, Paramount Prizes at paramountprizes.co.uk. Paramount Prizes are an online competition website. You can go online, get a cheap ticket and win some ridiculous prizes. They're really, really good. It's really impressive. That's paramountprizes.co.uk. Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Steve Kalis Show. I'm Steve Kalis, and I'm joined by Kevin Harris. Kevin, are you okay?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, thank you for joining me, mate. Appreciate it.
That's all right.
This week, we're diving into the story of Cain and Abel. Are you ready?
I believe so.
Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, but Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out in the field. And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, where is your brother Abel? I don't know, he replied. Am I my brother's keeper? Sass in the Lord.
Yep.
Bad way to go. You don't give the Lord
Famous
attitude.
line.
You don't want to sass the Lord.
No.
The Lord said, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on your earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. But the Lord said to him, not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain, so no one who found him would kill him, the mark of Cain. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. The important thing about the Cain and Abel story is their offerings to God. Okay, this is what provokes God's anger. Okay, so Abel worked with animals. He was an animal farmer, and he gave big, healthy portions of his absolute best and most delicious animals. He cared more about God than he did about his flock, which is why God was so thrilled with his offering. Now, Cain just gave some of his, because Cain worked the fields, so vegetables and fruits. Cain gave just some of his offering to the Lord. He thought, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and that'll be okay. But I'll keep the rest because, I've got this families to feed. I've got to sell some of this stuff. So that's what upset the Lord. Cain prioritized his profit, essentially, over the offering to God. And then Cain became so wrathful and angry and jealous, and that's why God cursed him.
Okay.
Now,
before you go too far, can I jump in with a few questions?
Please, yeah, do that. That's your job here. Mm-hmm.
Is there an assumption that Adam and Eve, wife?
So, great question. So actually, there's no story in the Bible that tells of a wedding between Adam and Eve.
I mean, if you're going to be married by God, it's probably the best.
Yeah, but there's no mention of any kind of ceremony or any. They're just 1 minute they are Adam and Eve, and the next minute they are she is his wife.
And then you say that hypothetically he's got families to feed. I'm assuming he's not selling this stuff; he's giving it away.
Well, this is where it gets really tricky. We explored this on the episode last time a little bit, but the church, the first 5 books of the Bible are called the Pentateuch. That is, I'm just going to do this from memory to see if my study has been working.
Like Pokemon.
Yeah, it does. But the first books of the Bible are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. That's the Pentateuch. Now, the Bible, the church, credits Moses with the authorship of these books. But actually a lot of work has been done, and it's quite clear there are at least 4 different authors. And for some reason, the 4 different authors who told a similar story in a different way and then spliced quite clumsily together.
Right.
So it says that later on that Cain, just after this, Cain meets his wife, has their son Enoch, and then starts the whole sort of family. Okay. Right. Where did those people come from? Because Adam and Eve are the first people on earth,
and then there's
Cain and Abel, right?
And then who are these people that he's feeding?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So where is this other community?
Who are these
on
people
earth
that are going to murder him?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why does he need a mark if there's no one about?
Exactly. Yeah, because the only other people, theoretically, far as the Bible's concerned, is his father.
So the Bible is just a messed up group project.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is in essence what these first 5 books are. Because once you get to there's the rest of the Old Testament, then the New Testament it's quite clear who wrote it because it's authored. It's Matthew, John, Luke, Paul. But the Old Testament is a little bit more confused. And this is very controversial, but it is quite clear that Moses is not the author of the first 5 books of the Bible. Okay? So, yeah, good question.
And at least they're just, it's quite simplistic jobs they've got. It's not like one of them's in IT and the other one's in utilities.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're well, because Adam's curse for being the original sinner alongside Eve was that he and his ancestors will have to till the land. So everything no longer will you be given this bounty by God. You would have to muddy your hands and graft everything from the soil.
Oh, right.
And it's a curse that carries on through Cain. There is one idea that the story of Cain and Abel is actually an ancient Sumerian story readapted for the Bible, which would make sense. That the Bible is a sort of hodgepodge of old stories. And Cain gets cursed to essentially be a nomad. The land of Nod that he gets cast out to just means wandering or to wander. So essentially he's cast out as a nomad. Now the Sumerians started to settle, and so they would raise cattle. They had the beginnings of civilization, and they feared the nomads. So this story is essentially,
to be a nomad is bad.
Yeah, to be a nomad is bad. Cain is a murderer, the original murderer, thus nomadic way of living is bad. Abel is the righteous man. He's the true believer in God, and he is settled. He's a cattle raiser. That's just one idea, which makes sense to me.
Based on those bits of information, could you surmise it in my English, if you will, if you can?
Okay, yeah, sure. So the summary of the story is essentially that God rewards Abel's righteousness because Abel put God's love and the love of God before himself, because he, like I said earlier, he cared more about God than he did his own well-being in his own flock. Whereas Cain's sort of jealous nature and Cain's hoarding nature, he wanted to, not hoarding, but Cain wanted to, he didn't want to give all that stuff to God because he had stuff to do with it, business to run, or he had whatever the situation is. Cain did not prioritize God, and Abel did, and God was upset at this. But I think a lot of what people say is that he could see in Cain's nature this was coming one way or another, so maybe God deliberately did this to push Cain into his actual nature, which is one of wrathful sort of vengeance and anger. Cain kills Abel because of this, because he's just pissed off of how God reacted to his offering. And Cain, initially, I like how it always tickles me, the sass from Cain, where God's like, "Where's your brother?" And he goes, "Fuck am I, fucking keeper?"
We're on about omnipotent, sees all one.
Yeah. Well, that's the point of that, I suppose. God knows the answer. If God is as he is often
omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent,
if he's all knowing, then he must have known Abel was dead. So what he wanted, I guess, from Cain, and maybe Cain had an opportunity for absolution here, or for the problem to be resolved, Cain could have said, "I killed him, I lashed out," and then maybe God would have said, "You have."
That's repentance.
So maybe Cain, messed up twice there. And that's why Cain and his descendants were sort of cursed. And so interesting. So that's the story of Cain and Abel. It's a story of jealousy, of what happens if you don't put the love of the Lord before you.
Religious soap opera.
Coming up next, we are going from Adam to Noah. We are going to explore why God felt the need to flood the earth, and the point of that, what that story means. Just telling the story and seeing what it sort of does for us. So the flood story is coming up. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. What we're trying to do here is it's not attack the Bible. We're not trying to pick it apart. We're trying to enjoy it and learn from it and see what the lessons are and see what we make of it. So thank you. Appreciate Kevin. Thank you for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for educating.
Hey, no problem. And listener, we will see you next week. Thank you.